As of writing this, Ubisoft has released a stealth and combat overview for AC Shadows, and both overviews have shown interesting gameplays that hint that AC Shadows just might be a decent game. And hopefully that will be true once the game is released in February 2025. However, despite the cool things that they revealed, especially in the stealth overview, it was not clear if AC Shadows will be a ghost-friendly game. I mean, the game will have good stealth elements with the shadow mechanics and other stuff, there's little doubt about that. But regarding being able to complete missions without killing enemies and only assassinating targets, well, that's a different question. So I decided to do a bit of a brain exercise where I look at the info we have now and predict if ghosting is viable in AC Shadows. Okay, so first off, let's quickly define ghosting or ghost stealth first. Basically, ghosting in AC Shadows means that we must be able to complete an objective without being seen and assassinating only the target. For example, maybe Naoe goes on a mission where she has to infiltrate a temple. Now in a standard action RPG, there will be no way to finish the mission unless you take out guards by fighting them head on. Then once every enemy is defeated, you get to the big boss battle. But in a stealth focused game, there may be a way to circumvent enemies and pass through an area without being seen. Then when you get to the big boss, it may be possible to do a sneak takedown against them, taking them out in one shot. So for ghosting in AC Shadows, we want to expect the experience with a stealth-focused game, where you go into an area, navigate around enemies without being seen, and assassinate the big boss in one fell swoop. And so let's return to the big question. From the info we currently have, will ghosting be possible in AC Shadows? Well, based on my humble opinion, and I'm no expert, but I think ghosting should be possible in AC Shadows, at least for a couple of missions, and here are my reasons. The first and most important reason is the fact that ghosting was also possible in Odyssey, which was a game that was also made by Ubisoft Quebec, who are currently working on AC Shadows. So since it's the same studio working on a similar RPG-themed Assassin's Creed, I think it's safe to say that the feel of AC Shadows will have a resemblance with Odyssey. The level design such as enemy placements inside forts or castles will probably have the same feel to them. And I know that a lot of players say that Odyssey's stealth sucks and it's non-existent, but that is not true. I played Odyssey as a stealth game even in my first playthrough and it worked. Of course, I wasn't playing as a ghost but as a little assassin working in the shadows. And it worked. I optimized my build to be stealth focused, relying heavily on critical hits, and I felt like an assassin. However, in AC Shadows, since it is more stealth focused, at least compared to Odyssey, then I think we can expect the ghosting experience to be a bit better, especially with the tools that Naoe will have at her disposal. Which leads us to my second reason why ghosting in Shadows may be possible, the tools that Naoe have. You see, from the stealth overview, we know that Naoe will have smoke bombs, shinobi bells, kunais, and shurikens, which all have their own use even when ghosting. Smoke bombs are a staple in Assassin's Creed ghosting since it allows us to blind enemies and pass through certain areas that would otherwise be inaccessible, unless we take out certain enemies. This is why the addition of smoke bombs, especially the smoke bombs you can throw far away in AC Brotherhood, was such an improvement in the game's stealth experience. It allowed for non-lethal ways to get through areas which are really satisfying to do. Next, we have shinobi bells, which are described as distraction tools to lure enemies away. Basically, these are Naoe's noisemakers, which we will be able to use to reposition enemies. Now this type of tool is something that I also like since it promotes a non-lethal way to get past enemies. You throw the noisemaker, the enemy moves from their guarding spot to inspect the noise, and you move in without them knowing you were there. Then we have the shuriken, which from the description works like utility tools that you can use to stun enemies but also interact with the environment. For instance, I expect to be able to use the shuriken to take out lights, cut through ropes to make objects fall, and break objects, like vases, to cause destruction. Overall, from the looks of it, I expect the shuriken to be a creative tool that I can use for ghosting, especially on instances where it seemed like an area is not ghostable. I think if it works as I expect it to, it will be my favorite tool for ghosting in the game. Also, let's not forget about the kunai. This one though is a lethal tool, designed for one-hit headshots. Now, since I am talking about ghosting, using the kunai against standard guards is a no-go. However, maybe it is usable to kill certain unarmored targets from afar, allowing us to snipe them and technically ghost a level or a mission. To sum it all up in terms of the tools that Naoe has, it looks like they are mostly non-lethal tools that we can use to distract and stun enemies, This may hint in level designs that are very Ghost Stealth friendly and perhaps feel like those levels in Unity and even Syndicate. Alternatively though, in terms of Yasuke, I'm not really sure if he will have tools that can be used in stealth. The stealth overview only said that Yasuke can perform stealth takedowns using his melee weapons. No mention of tools and anything that could lead to us being able to ghost as a giant samurai. Anyway, let's get to my third point, the ability to grab enemies. You see, knocking out enemies is allowed if you are doing a ghost run. The rationale there is that you're not killing the enemy but just knocking them out. They will wake up later on, freeing you from any guilt of unwanted murder. And in AC Shadows, it was revealed that the ability to knock out enemies is back. This mechanic was lost in Valhalla and Mirage, in which I have no idea why they did so. Knocking out enemies was present in Origins and even in Odyssey, but then they decided to throw it out of the room in the last two games. Anyway, AC Shadows will have a grab mechanic that will allow us to drag enemies and then take them out, either lethal or non-lethal. For ghosting, the non-lethal option is a godsend. Just think of an instance where you stumble on a room where there are a lot of enemies. Then you find a specific route that seems viable for ghosting. However, there's one enemy standing on the doorway and they don't move at all. What's more, you are all out of tools. No smoke bombs, no bells, no anything since you have used them earlier in the level. So now you have only two choices. Either assassinate the guard or knock him out. Of course, since you are ghosting, you have to opt for the knockout. So you make your way through the level and behind that particular enemy. You grab and drag him in an isolated corner and you knock him out. Congrats, you've ghosted the level. Now let's quickly talk about the hindrances in ghosting in AC Shadows. From my experience ghosting the Assassin's Creed franchise, there are two major hindrances that I have stumbled upon repeatedly. One are forced combat scenarios where the enemies are scripted to instantly detect the player, regardless if you're hiding, in a disguise, or you have blinded the enemies. Basically, once you step into a certain threshold, the enemies will instantly detect you. Now, since this occurs throughout the series, I have adopted the rule of not counting detection from the scripted events. And in AC Shadows, I expect to have these types of events as well. They are really not that big of a deal since the game is also in the action-adventure genre, so I happily accept these moments. For the second hindrance, these are enemies that you cannot one-hit assassinate despite them being assassination targets. This hindrance was first introduced in Origins and made its way up until Valhalla. Though Valhalla did fix this with their assassination minigame and the addition of the one-hit assassinate option in the settings. Basically, certain enemy types have big HP pools that make it possible to one-hit assassinate them. Even when you optimize for stealth assassinations, it is likely that you may not have enough damage, especially during the early game. However, if Odyssey is to be based upon, being able to one-hit assassinate every enemy should be possible by the late game, provided you optimize your build. In AC Shadows, of course, we've seen the footage where Naoe failed an assassination attempt against a samurai. This indicates that there will indeed be enemies and targets that we cannot one-hit assassinate. Though it was also stated that some enemies may survive a standard assassination but die from an air assassination. This may mean that certain enemy types will have their own assassination weakness, meaning some will be vulnerable to air attacks, others to backshots, some may even be only killable using the kunai's one-hit headshot. This is not to mention environmental kills such as using stalactites to kill targets, or maybe we can still throw enemies off cliffs and stuff. Anyway, from what we've seen so far, I am confident that ghosting is possible in AC Shadows. As of writing this, the parkour and exploration overview have not yet been released, so maybe there are more information there that hints that we can ghost stealth in AC Shadows.